even if they are not homophobic or transphobic themselves, if they're in a classroom situation, something is said from one student to the other, and all they do is say, okay, that's enough now, and then turn their back and keep going. And I know it's difficult because they've got their own other jobs to do. I completely get that. But if they don't really nip that in the bud, the other children see them as a co-conspirator to the bullying. Like he's there, that teacher, he or she is allowing this to happen, even though they may not ever think that way. And so it's really something that it's got to be, just something part of every classroom that the youth know this, that they have some place that they can go to. But like you said, many youth are too afraid to tell their parents because even if they are not, they're not LGBT themselves, if they're perceived as that, even a lot of times the bullying happens not really based on sexual orientation. It comes out as that being with the words being used. But a lot of times it's gender expression and about, okay, this boy's playing the clarinet in band, he's got to be gay. Or this girl is a shot putter on the track team, she's got to be a lesbian. Well, no, not necessarily. And if they are, that's another whole added issue because they don't want mom and dad to know that they are struggling. So it's really difficult, but it happens in order to work on that is to train parents in general just to keep an eye out for that and to let their families know as they're growing up if they are open to those communications about that that it's not that being gay or being lesbian or being trans isn't a negative thing, that they should talk about that from the get-go so the kids know that if this is happening, they can come and talk to them about that. But if it's not going to happen in the home, it needs to happen in the schools. And maybe even in your other community, some of the churches are even looking into this, saying, well, what can we do to be open and let people know that we are accepting of these people? So, yeah, it's a big challenge.
Mm-hmm. Ross, from a prosecutor's perspective, when we're talking about when an incident happens and you're brought in, how do you distinguish what punishment is appropriate and when to take it into a criminal matter as opposed to having it worked out on a school or family level?
Yeah, that's one of the most, difficult areas that we kind of run into is determining at what point can the school no longer be the one who deals with the situation. There are easy calls, such as threats to other students that are of a serious enough or alarming enough nature that we think that we go to a criminal process immediately. But it is a very difficult question, and oftentimes when we speak to schools, we tell them, number one, obviously we think you know how to run your school, but sometimes there are going to be situations where either you're not getting results, or if the parents feel that they're not getting the results that they need, any combination of factors, we can step in. And in terms of whether or not there's some sort of bright line test for making something a criminal situation or not, there isn't. It is a judgment call, but the important thing I think to remember, and the thing that we try to emphasize to kids is that we can step in right away. It's not a situation where we have to let the school deal with it first, and then if the school can't resolve it, then we step in as a prosecutor and as a prosecutor's office. If a criminal act occurs, we can file criminal charges. And I think when students understand that, they kind of see that, and after we describe the process of how burdensome probation and the juvenile system can be, we see that they give us some good responses in terms of, thinking about what they're doing before they actually do something.
Obviously, this wasn't in Marion County, but one of the lightning rod cases for bullying, hazing in school is a situation that happened up in Carmel and the basketball team. And there was a lot of criticism from the public as far as how it was handled by the school, by the prosecutor's office, by the families of those involved. I guess being not in that county kind of analyzed that. How did that, how do you think that happened? Was it proper or not? And what can we learn from that situation moving forward?
Yeah, it's another area of, I guess we could have an entire panel discussion on that particular case by itself. What went wrong, I think, was number one, communication to the severity of the nature of what happened. I think there was a culture that kind of, tried to downplay the severity of what was going on. So that you've got failures at, the school level, you got failures at the educational level that, these students are accepting this kind of behavior. I think the lesson learned from that kind of situation is, number one, especially with the kind of allegations that came out of that, which were very serious. We need to be much more aggressive and much more vigilant as to what students are doing and the kind of behaviors that they consider acceptable. And if we see that kind of pattern of behavior, to attack it wherever it may pop up, because obviously there was a culture that thought that was okay, and clearly it's not okay. So anytime we see something like that, or anytime that there's any sort of situation like that, we would want to put our full efforts into it, and we would want to make sure that parents feel that they can come to our office if they feel that they're without recourse through other means.
I'm curious, have we made progress? And maybe, Jennifer, you can speak to something specific maybe you've seen in the schools that you didn't see in the past. What kind of progress is being made?
I think the progress that's being made at this point is that we're very aware of it. The administrators, teachers, students, parents are cognizant of what's happening, that it is happening, that it is truly a situation and an issue and a concern that we have to address. So I know that in the elementary schools, and we all have the school policy of bullying, of no bullying being tolerated. We also place that in that student handbook, the parent handbook. The thing that we have as well in the elementary schools, and actually all of our schools, we have parent liaisons. So when there is an issue, that's one of the proactive things that we've done as a district, having the parent liaison in the school, which they do all kinds of things, but one of the things is that they can come into a parent meeting with us when we're having an issue with a bullying situation, because I've done that as a former principal. I've had the parent liaison. They always build connections with the parents, and they go out and they do home visits, that kind of thing, and they explain to the parents, which may not understand, that this is a real issue. Your child is doing this. These are the things, and we list out the facts. We list out the things that we are seeing your child do. And so it's really hard for a parent when you really you take the personality out of it, you take the personal issue out, but you state the facts of what's happening. And so I think that's one of the proactive things that we've done by having the parent liaison works so well with the social worker and the principal and the teacher and the children, to making sure that it is a cohesive group, that we're all on the same page about the bullying. It's not going to be tolerated. And so we have programs as well that we have our Indianapolis Police Department. They will come in. We have the liaison that comes into the schools, and they walk the building. They talk with the children and things like that. And they will ask the principal, is there any certain person or any certain children that are doing, bullying? And they will ask those questions, and they will take those children and talk to them. And it's not like they're pointing a finger at them, but they're trying to build relationships. I think that's one of the key things that we have to do in the school systems, is that, first of all, you have to build relationships with all children, and you find out, as a former principal, you find out who your children are that will tend to bully others. And you get those children on your side to do the opposite. And a lot of times this is a psychological game that we play with kids, but they will feed into that. They will want to do what you want them to do. And sometimes they do choose to do the right thing. But as you've said before, there's some that choose not to do the right thing, and we have to follow the procedures, and we will not tolerate it. And unfortunately, sometimes that ends up with suspensions from school, but because we want all children to feel safe. And sometimes we do have to remove children and place them in alternative settings.
Last question from me before we open it up to you guys for questions. And if you could each briefly answer, we talked about the progress. What's the biggest challenge, especially in your portion of dealing with bullying? What's the biggest challenge we face?
In the schools in which I consult for the university, I want to reinforce something that Jennifer said, that I've seen progress in each of those schools. The nature of that progress is really twofold. The first, I've been hearing more conversations among teachers, among administrators, between administrators and teachers, and between schools and parents. And I'll say one thing in defense of parents, because I don't know if we said enough also in defense of parents as well as the things that they could be doing better. I've heard more parents being willing to make contact with schools to talk about what bullying is. One of the most animated, and this I think really gets at what you were asking here, one of the most animated conversations I've been party to is, what is bullying? There are certain behaviors that we agree are bullying, and then there are certain behaviors that create a somewhat more debate. We know that punching, hitting, any type of physical violence, any type of obvious disenfranchisement is bullying, but is not inviting someone to a party. Are certain types of words and phrases, is that bullying? And there's not total agreement on what the domain of bullying actually is. But I'm pleased that we're having those conversations, and those conversations need to continue. The second is what are the best ways to help children become empathic, to understand and value another's point of view. I think we're still at a pretty early stage in terms of how to do that. We're at somewhat of an early stage on how to involve parents. We know that interventions to help a child overcome bullying, interventions that are a part of the school's plan and the parents' plan together are more effective than what the parents may try to do alone or what the school tries to do alone. So helping parents in not only encouraging them but giving them ways to work with the school is something that we're still working on.
I think from a prosecutor's standpoint, there are a number of different challenges, but maybe the greatest challenge is simply convincing students to do the right thing when they see bullying or harassment of other students in schools. I think we've all been there. It is so easy to simply do nothing as opposed to standing up and telling somebody, be it a teacher, be it another adult, a parent, somebody you trust. But time and again, when we give discussions or when we give informational programs at schools, we run into a situation where students are communicative with us and they interact with us, but I always leave wondering, are they going to take that and actually use some of the tools that we've given them? And I think we've seen progress. I do think we've definitely seen improvements, but at the end of the day, it's always difficult to know how to reach every student so that if they do see something or if there is something happening, that they stand up and contact an adult. Or if they're being bullied, that they feel that they have somewhere to go. I think that's one of the most important things that I think that we, be it in the prosecutor's office or in the educational system, can do, is allow a student or let a student know that there is somewhere they can go and that there is someone they can turn to. Because again, as I kind of alluded to at the very beginning of our discussion, I believe that in the context of online bullying, Facebook bullying, the group dynamic can just be that much more isolating for students, especially if it seems like the whole rest of the group or the rest of the class is against you. And that can be a very emotionally difficult process for a student to go through. So our challenge, I think our greatest challenge is letting them know that they have recourse if that's occurring.